really unbelievable moment poignant moment during the Democratic National Convention when Chris Cuomo points up into the bleachers of the arena, where the convention was taking place, and there was these high seats, the owners' boxes up in the upper rim of and he said, those are the boxes that cost $1 million, $1.5 million to be in that box right now. And those are the big donors, the Democratic Party, the corporate donors, the BlackRocks, these kind of groups that are up there, the military industrial, the Big Pharma. He said, we don't even know who they are, but they're the ones that are making all the decisions here on the floor. And, those are the people that ultimately anointed Kamala Harris, who I don't think is, I don't want to be mean-spirited, and I've been very disciplined about not name-calling. To me, it's a disqualifier to be president of the United States if you don't believe in freedom of speech. And Vice President Harris has repeatedly said that the First Amendment is a privilege, not a right, that the government has a duty to censor what she calls misinformation and disinformation, that's not protected by the First Amendment.
That's a very dangerous word, misinformation.
It's first of all, the First Amendment protects all speech. It protects lies. It protects, it was passed not to protect convenient speech, but to protect the speech that nobody wants to hear. And when the government takes upon itself the right to decide what's true and what's not true, then you have a totalitarian system, because of course it's going to, and we saw this during COVID, where the government was really the biggest propagator of misinformation, of factually inaccurate information, that it then uses the control of information to manipulate the public. And by the way, protecting lies is important, because a lot of the assumptions that we have about life and policy and politics and war and peace and the economy started out that now we believe as consensual truths, started out as hypotheses or suppositions that people considered dishonest or lying or wrong or erroneous or misinformation back then. The whole process of democracy is a dialectic in which, new ideas that are unpopular, that appear manipulated or dishonest, challenge existing realities. And in that dialectic, in the furnace of debate and of dialogue, of conversation, these ideas are annealed. And in a true democracy, functioning democracy, they rise in the marketplace of ideas and become policies if they survive that process.
Going online without ExpressVPN is like forgetting to mute yourself on a Zoom meeting. Do you really want everyone to hear your unguarded opinions? Imagine scrolling through your favorite websites, blissfully unaware that your every click is being monitored. It's not just big tech. Your internet service provider sees it all. And in the US, they can legally sell that information to advertisers. It's like having someone read your diary and then auction it off to the highest bidder. ExpressVPN reroutes 100% of your traffic through secure encrypted servers. This means your ISP can't see your browsing history. It's like sending your data through an impenetrable tunnel. By hiding your IP address, ExpressVPN makes it extremely difficult for third parties to track your online activity. That's why I use ExpressVPN every time I'm researching sensitive topics or accessing public Wi-Fi. In today's world where information is currency, protecting your digital footprint isn't just smart, it's essential. It's also incredibly user-friendly. Just open the app and click one button to get protected. And ExpressVPN works on all my devices, phones, laptops, tablets, and more. You can stay private whether you're at home or on the go. But don't just take my word for it. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge. Protect your online privacy today by visiting expressvpn.com/Jordan. That's expressvpn.com/Jordan, and you can get an extra 3 months free. expressvpn.com/Jordan.
Nobody should be an arbiter at the beginning, at the outset, as to what you can talk about and what you can't. And the the impulse of the Democratic Party to censor debate is part of a larger disease, which has to do with centralized control rather than democracy, and the mistrust of the people, the mistrust of the demos, which is the people, which is what democracy is named after. So they believe that the government needs to control what people hear so that they don't become infected with dangerous ideas. And, it was dangerous ideas that launched the American Revolution, an idea that people could actually govern themselves, which was considered a lie back then. And they won the revolution. And then, our nation has been about trusting people and avoiding centralized mechanics of control. And now the Democratic Party is all about the centralization of control. It's about surveillance. It's about controlling the flow of information. It's about top-down policies that are dictated by an oligarchy, and it's the opposite of democracy. And so I saw that firsthand, and I saw it in the Democratic Party alone. This is an irony. From the beginning, our polls were showing, and all the national polls were showing, or almost all of them, that I was hurting President Trump. And about 57% to 60% of the people who said they were going to vote for me said that if I left the race, they would switch their votes to Trump. So me being in the race was actually helping the Democrats. It was the Democrats who were trying to destroy my campaign, who were trying to, sued me.
Despite that.
Yeah, and it's very strange, right? Because I was helping them.
Yeah.
The Republican Party made no effort to keep me off the ballot. They didn't make efforts to discredit me. I mean, President Trump said, obligatory bad things about me, that I was a left-wing radical and all of this stuff, but they weren't mean-spirited things, and they weren't, there was no effort to keep me from speaking. The Democrats kept me from speaking, and their allied media outlets. And when Ross Perot ran in 1992, Jordan, he was 10 months in the race, and he had 34 interviews on the mainstream media, on ABC, NBC, CNN, et cetera.
Right.
In the 18 months that I spent in the race, I had 2 live interviews.
And how long were they?
What?
How long were the interviews?
Well, they weren't long. I mean, the longest one was with Aaron Burnett, which was, I think, 22 minutes, maybe 27 minutes.
Right. So you got about 40 minutes, maybe.
So they can't censor it. If you do a taped interview, they cut out whatever they don't want the public to hear.
Yeah.
Oh, I had 2 live interviews during 18 months compared to 34 interviews in 10 months that he had. Oh, I wasn't allowed to write letters to the editor, to the Washington Post, the New York Times, any of the mainstream, the sort of the Democratic periodicals, or publish editorials. None of them. I could not speak to that constituency. And, that's really why, I had to withdraw ultimately, and then they wouldn't let me on the debate stage.
Yeah, right.
And that was a collusion, too, because if you'd had the old debating commission, it was run by, originally for the first 15 years, my uncle had the first televised debate in 1960. And for 20 years after that, it was run by the League of Women Voters, which was independent, unbiased, and they had their own rules for letting people in. They would have let me in under their rules. And for the next, after 1980, it was run by the Commission on Presidential Debates, which was also unbiased. But President Biden and President Trump said, we're not going to use the Commission on Debates. Now we're going to make a separate deal with CNN. And we now know what happened in that. The New York Times was reported in their conversations where President Biden said, we are not going to be on the stage with Robert Kennedy. So we want you to keep him off. And if you have rules that let him on, then we're not coming. And for CNN, it's tens of millions of dollars for that debate. And then they're going to get
Why did Trump agree to
and
that?
they're going to get hundreds of millions. Well, he went back and forth on it. So the Republicans were not entirely good on that, but he did say publicly, I think he should be on the debate.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then the same thing happened with ABC, and they adopted rules that actually I was able to reach their metrics, their thresholds, but they still kept me off the debating stage. And that's illegal. Clearly, it's illegal under FEC rules. You're not allowed to deliberately exclude another candidate from the debate without neutral rules. And you're not allowed to develop rules specifically to keep somebody off the debate. Otherwise, the debate itself becomes an illegal campaign contribution. And,
right, of course.
And that's why, Trump's lawyer, went to jail for that. Right? So what they were doing was criminal. The FEC is an anemic organization that is half the commissioners Republican, half are Democrat. So independent, none of them care about an independent, and so they just didn't act on it. About 3 months ago, President Biden and Kamala Harris gave this statement about Vladimir Putin, where they said they were ridiculing him because he had won the Russian election with, I think he got 88% of the vote. And they said, well, that's because he didn't let anybody else run against him and because he controlled the media. So, that's not really democracy. Well, that was the same system they put in place over here. So the whole thing was an irony. But, that is also the fact the Democratic Party abandoned democracy was another part of this inversion that has taken place. And that my wife saw that process firsthand. And I think, it changed some of her worldview and made her, she wasn't happy about me endorsing President Trump at all. And did not want me to do it, but it became, I think, tolerable for her, where she